with you all here. And today's the third day. And thank you for sticking around. And I know that some of you are really tired, you had to log off. Some of you are still sticking around. But today we have workshops, wonderful workshops. And for the last 2 days, we had wonderful um, presentations and discussions around equitable practices, but specifically focusing on AI. And here is another wonderful AI workshop by Amanda Scukanec and Christina Kennedy. And they will be talking about assignment glow ups, tilting with AI. And I wonder what tilt is. So hopefully we'll learn, right? You
Yes.
will.
Can you imagine? Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, microphone is yours.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, I'm Christina Kennedy. I am a full-time faculty member in the English department at Copper Mountain College in Joshua Tree, California.
And I'm Amanda Scukanec. My last name's crazy, so you can just say Amanda. It's fine. And I'm a full-time faculty member at Mount San Jacinto College in San Jacinto, California.
So let's talk about assignment glow-ups.
Yeah.
Amanda, go ahead.
Thanks. So there's the
Sorry.
overview for today, right? For our little session. We're going to do some introductions to get started. We will immediately answer what tilt is, right? So you will know exactly what that means, what the acronym means. We're going to talk about what an LLM is and how to use the two together, right? Which is kind of like how AI and tilt can work together and help improve all sorts of things for students. Then we'll do a tilting with AI. We have like a quick demonstration, and then we'll leave you to your own devices to like, okay, give it a shot, right? Like see what happens, see what it does. And then we will close with Q&A. Okay, so tilt. What is tilt? This QR code will take you to the Transparency in Learning and Teaching like framework website essentially, and on it it has a bunch of examples of what tilted assignments are. The too long didn't read version of tilt is clarity, right? You're trying to take your assignment and make it as clear and relatable for students as possible, right? Oftentimes when we write assignment prompts or rubrics or learning outcomes, there's a bunch of like expectations embedded underneath it, right? So in tilt, it's about just revealing all of those expectations, right? So here, the tilt framework is based on kind of three big principles. The first is purpose. So telling your students or telling people like why this assignment matters, right? Like we are doing this very deliberately to do this in the future or to help you in this area, right? To work on an essay, to study for a test, right? It's just about being as clear as possible. The task is then what students are expected to do. So the task could quite literally be like a numbered system where it's like step 1, open Microsoft Word, right? Step 2, set it up in APA format or MLA format, right? Whichever one you use. It can be like that. You can also include things of like steps not to do, common mistakes, right? Like here's how you want to approach this assignment. And then criteria is all about how students are going to be graded or evaluated. So I know that we can often do this when it comes to rubrics, right? And we can expect students to review rubrics, but we know they don't. So criteria can be really helpful in terms of here's what the expectations are to be successful. And it could also provide like a template or a past example that was like, hey, this one was really good. These are the areas it was really strong in. Maybe these are the areas it was really weak in. But that could also include common mistakes, right? So the concept of tilt, it's based off these three things, and it's been shown to improve student confidence, clarity, and success, but very specifically for first generation and underrepresented students, right? It has shown to have tremendous impact on their success in different courses. This can be incorporated not just into like assignments a student has, but you can do it in activities and discussions, even something like a welcome letter, right? You can also do it for like flyers, right? So say if you're not a faculty member and you don't necessarily teach or assign assignments, if you have a flyer for like the financial aid office, at the top you can say, hey, the purpose of this flyer is to inform you of these things, right? So students aren't confused about hidden expectations or hidden understandings that they may not have knowledge of. So I'm just showing a quick tilted example. I work with a couple of different faculty members at the college I teach at, and we practice tilting all the time. So this was an example of a quiz prompt from a psychology course. And this is kind of the before, right? Before tilt has happened, it was just kind of like a really general, here's some instructions on how to complete this, right? Answer the following questions as they relate to the chapter, slides, videos. Please make sure to review all material before answering the homework questions. It then talks about, you have 7 questions, 3 points per question. MC, which means multiple choice, but that can be confusing for people, right? They'll see MC and like not know what that means, right? TF, which is true, false, and fill in the blank, 21 points, right? It is the basic bare minimum. I don't really know what the chapter's about. I don't really know what I'm being tested on. I just know it's on stuff that I'm supposed to have learned already, right? This is the after, right? The after has a lot more detail. So it has a title, bystander effect. It talks about in chapter 12, we covered this material, right? Here is what the bystander effect is. Here's where it emerged and how we learned about it. The purpose of the assignment is to test your awareness of the bystander effect. So the student understands, oh, okay, that's my main focus for this. It's not just an overall chapter review. It is a very specific, here's what we're tackling. And then there are instructions, right? But because it's a quiz, it basically just elaborated on the previous bullet it had in complete sentences, right? To not make it as confusing. So please answer the following questions, review all the material, right? You can have different types of questions. If you have technical difficulties, please let me know, right? That is a very different type of communication with a student about this assignment. On the previous slide, there was none if you have technical difficulties. Like there was nothing. Here it's, hey, you can always reach out to me, right? It's a little more approachable, a little more friendly. And then the rubric is just, hey, okay, there's 7 questions total, 3 points per question, 21 possible, right? Just to let them know. But this is a really good example of how tilt can help provide clarity. That's the biggest thing for students in terms of why they are completing the assignments they are or doing the activities that there are, and instructions on how to be successful. This, even of itself, has room for improvement too. Like there are still recommendations I would make here, but in terms of what it was before versus after, looks way better.
Definitely. So that tilt assignment was tilted. The original assignment was created by a human and then tilted by a human. So what we're going to dive into now is a little discussion about large language models, and then we'll move into combining the idea and the concepts of tilt with using AI. So since this is potentially, there might be some beginners here who might be brand new to artificial intelligence and large language models, we wanted to give a rundown of exactly what an LLM is. So LLM stands for large language model, and it's a type of artificial intelligence that analyzes and understands texts. And so I'm sure a lot of us have heard of all the examples that we have at the bottom here. So there's ChatGPT, that's the most famous one. There's Llama, XLNet, Lambda, and many, many more. There's even on some PCs, it comes equipped with artificial intelligence, which is called Copilot. And I believe there's even Macs now that have some sort of artificial intelligence equipped in the systems with them as well. But essentially, large language models are trained by absorbing massive amounts of data from the internet, all different types of books, articles, journals, everything, and newspapers to learn how the structure of language works. And so it's much more accurate than just traditional learning algorithms because they can grasp the complexities of natural language, which is why you may have found in recent years students attempting to submit work that is AI generated, because if it can grasp the complexities of natural language, then it can write that way if you prompt it to do so. And so what exactly can an LLM do? and this is just more specifics of it. So since it has the knowledge to perform those natural language processing tasks, it can translate things for you. It can do question answer kind of back and forth with you. You can have essentially a dialogue with LLMs. There's text completion. It can generate text. It can summarize a document. So if you found an article that you think, wow, I'd love to know all about what's within this article, but I don't really have the 3 hours to read all of it. So how about I just throw it into Chat GPT and ask it to summarize the main points of the article, and it could do that for you. Uh, and there's the sentiment analysis and also conversational agents. So something that's important to remember just as far as like basics of AI 101 is that all LLMs are generative AI, but not all generative AI are LLMs, because there are types of generative AI that exist that generate images, which isn't large language model, right? But it's different. And then there's other varying forms of generative AI as well. So ChatGPT, I like to describe as kind of like the Kleenex. So ChatGPT is to Kleenex as a large language model is to facial tissue. So you might hear us using them interchangeably, but it's the same thing as Kleenex and facial tissue. So this is how our step-by-step suggestions on how you should use large language models to tilt your assignments. So the first thing is figure out what your goal is when you want to tilt this assignment. What exactly in this assignment specifically do you want to improve? Do you want it to have that clear purpose, task, and criteria for success? Do you want it to just be more accessible, more equitable, somehow more engaging for your students, maybe relevant to your specific student demographic at the institution you're working at? And then you would provide that context to the large language model of your choice, and then share your original assignment by copying and pasting it just below that context. And if you wanted to add even further information, you could also describe your students for the large language model so they know who they are adjusting this assignment for. Is this for community college students? Is it multilingual students? Is it adult learners? Are you a sixth grade teacher? And so maybe you originally had this, but you started out in working in higher ed, so you wanted in more student-friendly language for 12-year-olds. You can ask it to make those adjustments, and it would do that for you. So also you can mention time constraints or flexibility. So what must stay based on what you have in the assignment? What are you willing to give up in the assignment instructions? Because maybe there's a component of it that you just really love when students do this because it shows their creativity or innovation, but you don't really care so much. And like maybe you need the points to stay the same for the sake of your grade book, but you don't really care about other details. Those can be adjusted. And you can ask for the tilted version, so request creative, scaffolded, or culturally relevant options as well. So tilt, you can incorporate, you can help you become a more equitable and culturally responsive instructor as well. And so here are some bonus tips to remember. Think of AI as a collaborator, not a replacement. So it's a tool, not a replacement for you. You are the expert. So AI sparks ideas, saves time, maybe comes up with wonderful ideas for you, but ultimately, since you're the expert, you may still end up needing to adjust the work that AI produces for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. AI isn't perfect. It's not in our heads, at least not yet. Give it time. But it is not, it is just a great tool that can help save some time for you when you want to adjust assignments, but maybe you're not sure exactly how to do it. Also, highly recommend this. Use follow-up questions. So it's very seldom when I use generative or large language models, very seldom does it happen where I prompt it, it gives me something, and then I go, great, thanks so much. And that's the end of it. I am consistently asking it to make adjustments, like make it even more playful, or suggest a rubric for me, or I don't like the wording of how you created the purpose for this assignment. Let's fix it. So it includes things like relevancy or something like that. And make sure that you stay student-centered. So check it once you're done playing around with the AI, check if the tilt helps students understand the expectations and see themselves reflected in the assignment itself. or whatever it is that your goal is that you're looking for.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add another tip. Were you going to add another one?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So here's the tip I was going to add is remember that AI is flawed.
Yes.
It's a great tool, but it does have problems. Sometimes it hallucinates. Sometimes it makes adjustments that make no sense to what you're trying to do with your assignment. So it is essential for you to check the work of the robot. Is that what you were going to say, Amanda?
No.
Oh, okay. Go
But
ahead.
it's true. That is very true. The one thing I was going to add, so I use AI all the time, right? But the more you use it, the more it will learn from you, even as a user, right? Especially
true.
if you like make an account. So my AI knows me, like scary knows me, but knows me fairly well, right? But even when I say like, oh, okay, I'm doing this for my students, it already knows because I've explained it to it so many times. But it will get to the point that if you use it enough, it will offer these suggestions for you. This has just started happening to me over the past like 3 days where I'll put in an assignment or some type of activity and be like, hey, I want to tweak this. I want to make it more fun, like turn it into like a game, right? Make it more engaging. And it will be like, hey, do you want handouts too? And I'm like, yes, I do. Right. And so it will start to offer these things the more frequently you ask for them. Right.
Yeah.
So like Christina was saying for the second point, like, yes, I want a rubric. It will just automatically start giving you options of how you want to change it, what you want to do, how you want to fix it. It's very helpful. That's it.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. I started noticing it was doing that with me, I think yesterday or the day before too, and I didn't even think to mention that. So I'm glad you did. We make such a good team. Uh, okay, so at this point, we wanted to share a little demonstration of using ChatGPT specifically to tilt an assignment. So what I'm going to do is just pop this open. Um, and so I just copied an assignment from one of my online classes down here. I'll show it to you a little more in a minute, but what I did here is I'm asking it. So I said, help me use the tilt framework. And I gave it this context just in case it gets confused because there's a lot of information in this whole text box already. So help me use the tilt framework to create a clear purpose and grading criteria for success. Because I already have the instructions there and I don't necessarily want to change those yet. This assignment is for my critical thinking students, English 103, at a community college in California. Please also make it more relevant to the students. So this assignment, it's just an exercise that they're doing individually, but essentially I'm asking them to write a written response of what they think the biggest problem in the world is today. And there's all these follow-up questions that I have for them. It's supposed to be 1.5 to 3 pages. And then so far for the grading criteria, I just have this assignment is worth 10 points in total. So not a whole lot going on there. And then for the purpose, I don't have anything. So let's see what it comes up with. It's thinking very hard. Okay. So here's a revised version of this assignment using the TILT framework. This version uses a clear purpose, task, and criteria for success and makes the assignment feel more relevant to your California Community College students in English 103. And, it always adds emojis to make it more fun and maybe relevant for the students, provided that the emoji aligns with how they would use the emoji, because that does change depending upon generation. Okay. Oh, so the purpose here is big. So why this assignment matters. Okay. In real life, you're constantly asked to make sense of the world and consider how we can make it better. Whether we're talking about climate change, housing insecurity, or access to education, being able to think critically about a problem, understand its roots, and imagine possible solutions is a skill that transfers to almost every job, college course, and real life decision. Cool. So this assignment helps you do all these bulleted things. You might not solve the world's biggest problem in 3 pages, but you'll practice the kind of thinking that leads to real change.
Did it just make a joke?
Maybe.
I feel like it just made a joke.
It's a little bit.
Yeah, it made a joke.
So I love this. Usually personally speaking, I like my purpose to be a little shorter. So what I'll probably do is get rid of this and then just move this sentence up here, and I would keep that. And I like the little joke, and it might be making the joke because I like to make jokes. I'm a very like self-deprecating instructor with my students, and so they always enjoy my sense of humor. So my AI here, whom I call Pat, might be kind of tapping into my personality a little bit just because I've used it a lot, right? Okay, so it did change it and my instructions area and just numbered them, which does make it a little more clear for the students, which is great. And then let's see, use one academic source, and then they ended up giving me a rubric for it for the whole thing, which I can use or I can pull wording from and just list bullets of you'll earn full points if you do all these things. And then note about relevance. So this is something that I didn't have in here. You don't have to choose a problem that's trending or politically charged unless you want to. What matters is that it feels real and important to you, which I love that.
Great idea.
Oh, I can't wait to actually change this assignment. And then it asked me this wonderful follow-up question. Would you like a sample or mentor text to go along with this, or a version of this as a downloadable handout or Canvas announcement? Just what Amanda was saying. Yeah. Very cool. So let's see. We did have, and I could continue to ask it questions and have it make adjustments for me, or you could just copy it and put it into Canvas or whatever LMS you're using and make the adjustments as you see fit. So it is time to tilt. Oh, let's see. Do we have questions in the chat?
No.
Okay.
Oh, wait, there's one.
Yes, I think we do. Does the LLM also do well with prompts like after tilting the instructions, make it something students will read all the way through? Um, AI isn't quite there yet, but I bet you someday it might be. That's a whole nother session, right? I'm sure somewhere where it's a matter of like trying to make the whole prompt engaging so students read through the whole thing. I think we need to at this point turn prompts into TikToks. Like no longer than 30 to 45 seconds. Tell them what they need to do, show them samples, be done with it. But if you still want to stick to the written form, then this would be a good start. So at this point, your glow up starts now. So the first thing you need to do, of course, since we're now in this workshop portion of the session, so you would pick an assignment. So anything that you'd like to revise, refresh, reimagine. If you are not faculty, you could, and maybe you're a counselor or you work in the financial aid office or something, you can pull up like a pamphlet or a brochure or something that you um, frequently hand out to students. Amanda, what do you normally suggest with these? An assignment that students typically struggle with and ask a lot of questions on would be a good one, or what's the other one? One that you really love?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
usually if you have an assignment or even just like a concept that you constantly get emails about and you're like, I don't understand what's unclear, that's a perfect one for this one.
yeah,
Just because Tilt is about clarity. But another one is the assignment you love the most, right? And that can feel kind of vulnerable, right? To put it in there if it's like, I really love this one and I don't want to change it. I don't want it to be different, right? But with that love can come a lot of bias, right? And
right,
so if our objective is to be clear and equitable for students, you kind of have to think about it, right? I have put in assignments I loved and watch it just tear it to pieces, but then I understand why they made the changes it made, right? Because
right.
ultimately it is for my students. So that's what I would recommend if you're like, oh, I don't want to give it the one that I love, then pick your problem assignment. That's what I call it. Like pick your
The
problem one
problem
that's like,
child.
they have a ton of questions about this always. I've explained it 1,000 times. We'll just
Yeah,
see what Tilt can do with it or ChatGPT can deal with it.
right. Um, yeah, so then once you get your assignment, you'd open up your favorite AI tool. So any kind of LLM. If you're new and you're like, I don't know where to start, ChatGPT is my go-to always, and that's what I would recommend. Um, and it'll prompt you to create an account. The account's free. You don't have to create the account to use it though.
Mhm.
And then you can use the Tilt template here, which I linked in the chat, but I'll pull it up here as well. And then if you have questions, and I mean, we're here for the remainder of the session, of course, to brainstorm, troubleshoot, cheer you on, whatever you need. So this is essentially what the prompt will look like for you, or the prompt builder. So let's see, fill this out to ask AI for help. So what you can do is just copy this and then paste it into something else for your reference. And so let's see, what is the purpose? So why are students doing this assignment? What is the task? What's the criteria for success? So if you fill out some of this, and then what kind of tilt do you want? You would explain this. And then is there anything else you want AI to know? And so here's an example of this filled out. So it seems like there's a lot here, but it's just giving a little bit of context under each number. But here, so example of this fill out. So the purpose of this assignment is to practice critical reading and source evaluation. Students are tasked to compare 2 articles on climate change and write a 2-page analysis. Criteria for success: students will be successful if they cite both articles correctly, identify bias, and explain which source is more credible. So what kind of tilt are we looking for? Please tilt this assignment to make it more accessible and connected to pop culture. Ooh, interesting. And then students can create a short video or infographic instead of a paper. So it could be like a flyer or a brochure or something instead, which usually adds to, it equitizes the assignment a little bit too.
And fun fact, this document was made with AI, right? I put it into ChatGPT, hey, I need a prompt builder for Tilt. And it went, okay, here is it. And this wasn't the exact thing it gave me. It had a lot of excess where I was like, I don't need some of this. I'm going to change the wording here. And it gave me this.
Leaving that example up is good. So would y'all prefer that I have the example up or the instructions here? You can just throw it in the chat. Whoever replies first will be the deciding one. Slide. Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Oh yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, I was gonna say our last slide is just, hey, who has questions and everything, but those are our emails. We can throw them in the chat too. So if anybody has questions later and want to pick our brains or find us on LinkedIn or collaborate in other ways, we'd be happy to be there. Cool.
And we have one more question in the chat, Christina.
We do.
Melanie asks, how does it give you rubric since the instructions doesn't seem to have that?
Sometimes AI just takes a little creative liberty and makes the rubric for you. If you prompted it and it didn't give you a rubric, you could just ask it as a follow-up question in that same thread of chat. Hey, I'd like to have a rubric for this.
Yeah, it could also be because Christina asks for rubrics from her AI Pat.
I have a
Right?
couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, so it could, the more it gets to know the user and the user's expectations of what it uses it for, it can typically predict things that you might ask it.
Yes, and Kevin, you're right too. Like it probably interprets criteria for success as a request for a rubric, though with Tilt, usually they advise against, not against using rubrics, but against having that be your sole explanation for the criteria for success, because students don't understand rubrics. I think the farther along you go in your studies as a college student, at least, the more like you just get more accustomed to understanding rubrics. But in your first few years, which is the age or the grouping like freshman and sophomore that Amanda and I typically teach, they don't understand rubrics. Like you'll show it to them and say, okay, well this is how it's laid out, and they go, "Ugh, I don't get it." So having a maybe a bulleted list, maybe including do's and don'ts. Like here are things maybe you could even also include, which I do on some assignments that students tend to struggle with, a subsection under that criteria for success that says, here are common mistakes that students make on this assignment. Like I have them do a timed essay for my online college composition classes. And I'm like, common mistake, even though I have it written about 4 other times in the rest of the prompt. Common mistake is writing the paper ahead of time because it's meant to test them because it's in a quiz format in Canvas and they sit and write for 2 hours. So yeah, the like first thing I say is, okay, common mistake is you do the work before you open the assignment. Stop that. So, and having things said multiple times usually helps too. Just sometimes adjusting the wording a little. Um, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if your criteria becomes like all the A+ sections of my rubric explained to the student, that's fine,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
'Cause I agree with Christina. A lot of my first gen students look at rubrics and it's confusing, right? It is. It can be really confusing. Or why they missed, 3 points of this one section, right? Like it can be complicated. So the more that you can like articulate what you're looking for, the better.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you can use
So,
it for in-person, online, hybrid classes, like literally any type of class. And again, it doesn't even have to be for an assignment. You could use it for like a handout. Like it's incredibly helpful.
yeah, definitely. We're big fans.
Amanda and Christina, thank you so much again. We have some more time, so I will actually open it up for everyone for questions if they would like to share any comments, any experiences they have with AI or with tilting, or anything you want to ask. Feel free to unmute yourself and
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Well, it looks like Marie has a question in the chat. Why do you think, or what do you think makes rubrics more difficult for first generation students?
I think
Hmm.
understanding how it's calculated can be confusing. I was a first generation student and I don't think I looked at a single rubric, but I also don't know if my professors ever even provided one.
Yeah.
To college a hot minute ago, so it may not
Yeah.
have been as common of a trend, right? But I think being able to understand like what it is they're trying to look for, especially if the grade has like ranges, I just want very clear expectations. Or if the rubric criteria is unclear,
Yeah.
right? If it says like, oh, say the criteria is we're looking at body paragraph content. Sure, right? I teach English, so that's kind of my go-to. Body paragraph content, and say the A+ rubric criteria is like successfully defends their position with evidence. I mean, okay, right? Like, I think I did that. And then the second one could be somewhat explains their position with evidence. So it's like, what is the difference between successful and somewhat in
Right.
this instructor's eyes, right? With ChatGPT, it can be, you have made clear connections between these two things. There are no gaps in logic, right? So
Yeah.
it can provide kind of just more insight, especially if rubrics, we tend to be a little vague because even when grading, we kind of like make those decisions as we review it. So
Mm. Yeah.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think it
Yeah. Well,
also, sorry, go ahead.
oh, oh no, no, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say, I used to be a Montessori preschool teacher, and there are certain things. One is called isolate the difficulty. And I think even as adults, we benefit from making things simple. And when you present, not only this is how you succeed in this, but here are the ways that you'll be somewhat successful or not successful at all. The things that like, again, I was trained to avoid saying, don't touch that, because they'll hear the last thing. They'll hear touch that. The don't part gets cut off. And so when you present 3 or 4 or 5, depending on how complex your rubric is, ways to achieve each of the criteria and varying degrees of success, that's confusing, especially for first generation students who are still grappling with the rules of the road, so to speak, the rules of the game. They have not been oriented to the way higher ed works, and we've just basically might as well give them like a 200-page legal document and say,
Yeah.
sign
Good
at the
luck.
bottom.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and just to kind of piggyback on both of what you said, the whole like I think language is really the main thing that causes challenges. And it's like even when I'm thinking about not even like what's in each box for like the like what counts as like an exceptional assignment, but like what like the word exceptional versus proficient versus a like average and so that's typically how like I categorize things. So it's exceptional, proficient, average, developing, and needs improvement. I mean, but needs improvement, you could still need improvement almost at like any of those levels too. So even my own word choice can be confusing to students, but that's also in an effort to not just totally deflate their spirits when they get a needs improvement when it's really just this is a failing attempt at whatever category this is, right? So it's difficult to and it's almost like when you go over an assignment, you have to provide them with context of this is how you read a rubric. And that might be something that would be good to do, but it also, if each rubric varies for each assignment, then how do we, how do we navigate that with our students? And that's why having that like bulleted list almost of this is what an exceptional assignment would be like in that criteria for success section, in addition to the rubric, I think is what helps bridge that gap. What other questions? Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you all for this presentation. This is really awesome, having fun and editing and exploring, like y'all said. And I think like my third revision right now is adding in emojis to make it fun too. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank
no, that's awesome. Yeah.
It makes it fun again. Like
Yes.
it really does. It makes it
Yeah.
fun, which is nice.
And it's
But
like you have a collaborative partner too, instead of just doing it all on your own. Because of course we have our colleagues to lean on and like seek feedback from, but they're not going to be available at your side 24/7 unless they're your spouse. But even then, like, so they're not going to want to work with you all the time, right?
Right, right. And even the spouse, I give her credit because she does so much. So props when she
Yeah, definitely.
But even then, I mean, obviously, if you get the paid version, right, of ChatGPT, I have the paid version.
Which
I
it's
don't
20
regret it
bucks a
at
month?
all. I'm upset.
Is that
Yeah, I'm obsessed with it, honestly. But the features are just incredible and they keep growing, right? Like there's
right?
so many things it can do. There are things that it fails at for sure. It is a robot,
Yeah.
but it is helpful when it needs to be 100%. And what's nice
Yeah.
about it too is it can help with accessibility. So that part is really nice, right?
Mhm.
The other day, actually yesterday, I was creating a presentation and I needed some images, right? So I asked ChatGPT to generate some images for me. And it did, and it offered, it was like, do you want descriptions for how these can be accessible when you input them in your LMS? And I was like,
Yes.
I do want that. I struggle with that so hard because the character limit,
Wow.
and it always like, I can't. I was so impressed. I was
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. I total side note, but I just used ChatGPT on Friday of last week while I was out of town visiting my friend who's a kindergarten teacher. And so I was in her class as a visitor. And I don't teach children, I teach adults. But she was like, do you want to do something with them? And I'm like, well, let me see what I can come up with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT created a kindergarten age-friendly story about Joshua Tree, California, where I work, and about Jordy the Joshua Tree that wanted to go to Rochester, New York, which is where I was. And he went on an adventure with kindergartners. It was amazing. And then I had it generate photos or images to go along with it, and it was so cute. It took a
Yeah.
little while because I had to keep like asking it for adjustments, but the story itself, like overall, was great, and just the fact that it was able to do that for me was incredible. So it's really fun to play with the technology. Flawed, but fun.
Well, and there's the flip side is the example from Pima Community College in Arizona, where a student on a panel described how he asked ChatGPT to explain the laws of thermodynamics as if he were a 10-year-old and
Yes.
used ice cream as a metaphor.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then he asked it again, explain it to me as if I was a 15-year-old, and then now explain it to me as if I'm a 20-year-old in a college physics class. And
Yes.
basically, he, on his own, with no prompting from an instructor, scaffolded the process to get the basic understanding, then get a little bit more, and then finally be prepared to discuss it in class at the level he was expected. And that to
Yeah.
me was like mind blowing. I literally, my hair all went straight out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
really cool.
constantly use it as like, explain it to me like I'm 5. And it'll break it down. And I'm like, okay, helpful. I know what this is now.
Yeah. It really tests you. It's like the show Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? But, if you ask it to describe something to you as if you're in fifth grade and you're still like, I don't get it, then that's it's pretty telling. Um, oh, interesting question, Marie. So for the results you get, how much do you credit using its functionality? Amanda?
I typically tell my students straight up, like, I use ChatGPT to be a better teacher for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have no problem admitting, hey, yeah, part of this was created by ChatGPT because I'm looking for ways to. The older I get, the less I relate to them, and it really bothers me because I was once in a spot where it was like, oh yeah, but now I'm like, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to do that now. So ChatGPT is a tool that can help me with that. But I tell
Right.
them, right? Like, I spend time critiquing things with it. We talk about ethical AI use in my courses. We use AI in my class for a lot of different things. Just because I know it's becoming one of those things that people are looking for in the job market. They want their
Yes.
employees to have a knowledge of AI and how to use AI. So I try to like kind of just get my students' feet wet and be like, here's kind of what the stuff it can do and things you can use it for and things you shouldn't use it for.
Yeah, I do largely the same thing with my students. I give them the blanket information at the beginning of the class, at the beginning of the semester, saying, okay, you should not be using AI to generate your own original work because that's prohibited in this class, except for we do have some assignments. And I do talk to them and explain the benefits and downsides of AI at present, which adjust a little each semester. So we have very real, like, candid conversations about it. It's like the idea, if you won't talk to your kids about drugs, someone else will. It's the same concept with me. I'm like, if you don't talk to your students about AI, someone else will, and then they'll be using it for everything instead of creating original work and submitting honest, non-plagiarized work. So we have conversations about that. And then in regard to what I use, it's very similar to how I use when I use other people's presentations that I found online, like a Prezi or something, and I'll say, okay, I borrowed this from somebody online at the very beginning before it starts. You could always add a little disclaimer on it that says these instructions were improved, like what Kevin suggested, which is great. But yeah, I just usually give the blanket statement at the beginning of the semester, and so they know like certain things have been adjusted or will be adjusted for the purpose of improving the transparency and clarity of the assignment instructions. Yeah. But let's see. So my policy, so there's only in my college comp class, sorry, the question in the chat asks, is that what we ask students to do as well when it comes to letting us know if they use AI? So I only have 2 assignments in my college comp class where they are supposed to use AI, and every other assignment in the class they're not supposed to. So with the supposed to assignments, it's a given that they're using it, so I don't care whether or not they mention that they used it because they have to. And then with the other stuff, I just expect them to not be using it.
Mhm.
But as things change and like as I adjust my assignments, because it seems like I do it a little more every semester, I'll probably like I will allow them to do certain things. And we do like sometimes we'll do a little outlining in class, and I'll say, hey, why don't you just use ChatGPT right now? So it's not like an official assignment, but it's something just more of like a workshop activity in class. But Amanda, you don't have them use like, do you have them credit AI when they use it, or do you just not allow them to use it for their papers?
For their papers, we don't use it. What I typically use it for is for examples. That's the bigger one in class. So I'll pull up ChatGPT and I'll copy paste my prompt in, and we'll look at the response and critique it. The response is
Yeah.
often not great, right? It's like a
Right.
C, maybe, right? Like, so and that's okay, but it takes a good amount of time to like show students, hey, yeah, there's a bunch of errors here. Like, you really have to dig into it and show them it is flawed. It has flaws. They exist. But in their actual essays, I don't let them use it, but my class is scaffolded in such a way that I'd be impressed if a student could, because we submit sections as we go. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Also a good point made in the chat too. Like it does like what is considered acceptable use and ethical use will greatly depend on your discipline.
yes.
Um, and because there's some classes where maybe you'll never be okay with students using AI because, for example, art class, as mentioned in the chat, like, no, we need you to be making your own work here because that's the whole point. Unless it were like a graphic design class where they said you could use some sort of AI, but to what extent and like how you monitor that, I think is always going to be tricky. Um, there's just a lot of unknowns as to what's to come, but it's good to at least have um, your own exposure to it in instances like this so you have an understanding of what's on the up and up.
Amanda and Christina, thank you so much. We had a wonderful session with you. It was a
Thank
great
you.
lecture and discussion afterwards. Thank you so much. And thank you for letting us what tilt is and how to use LLMs to tilt. In other words, transparency in learning and teaching. And we'll certainly practice tilting. Also, one important thing I would like to highlight from your slides is because yesterday and the day before we were discussing how some educators or faculty members are going through that denial phase of AI and trying, they're avoiding and they don't want to use it. So one thing you mentioned in your slides, think of AI as a collaborator, not a replacer, is a good mindset to open up and explore more about AI. Yes, this is the one I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yes, think of AI as a collaborator, not a replacer. Hopefully this mindset will help other educators as well to open up and explore all AI tools as a collaborator, hopefully. But thank you so much again. And thank you everyone for your wonderful questions and engaging in the discussion. Our next session will start at 10 a.m. in 10 minutes. So we can use this time to stretch, get some coffee and have something to eat maybe. And at 10 a.m. we're going to be back here. We're going to continue talking about AI, but this time it will be about student resources for e-portfolios. So we're excited to listen to the other session and look forward to seeing you in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
I just found this quote that I've used before that relates. It's from Steve Jobs from like 1996 or 97, and it was in like a tech magazine. And he says, what's important is that he said something, oh gosh, where is it? It's like technology is nothing. What's important is that you have faith in people, that they are basically good and smart, and if you give them tools, they'll do wonderful things with them. And I love that because it reminds me that, well, there's hope, because he said that in 1996 when people were freaking out about the internet being a thing. And here we are. We're still humans. We're still seen and valued as beings on this planet, and we're okay. And, I think the same thing will happen with AI. So on that
Great
note,
way to close the session. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.